This podcast is sponsored by Insurity. Insurity are a national specialist insurance broker focusing on property insurance within the leasehold and private rental sectors. Their clients are central to all that they do, and they strive to raise awareness of changing insurance needs within the property sector. As partner to the Property Institute, Insurity continue to work closely with the Property Institute and its members in order to drive the property industry forward.
Welcome to another episode of Beyond Four Walls, the podcast where we dive into the realities of business, leadership and well-being in the property industry and beyond. And today I'm thrilled to be joined by Rachel Maguire. Rachel is an experienced HR professional currently working at Earl Kendrick, but she's about to embark on an exciting new journey as a freelance HR consultant. And with a wealth of experience in people management, workplace culture, and navigating the challenges of employment within our sector, Rachel is here to share her insights on all things HR. And we'll be discussing everything from employee wellbeing and company culture to some challenges of going solo as a freelancer and some challenges that she's experienced along the way. So welcome, Rachel. Thank you for being with me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So if we can just start and talk a little bit about your background. What started you off in HR? What led you to the property industry? Just give me the info.
Great, yes. So, way back when, I actually read law at university. I went to Trinity College in Dublin and knew even then that I wasn't going to be a solicitor, but I really loved the employment law sector of my degree. Started off at CBRE in the legal advisor kind of team within a small department. And at that time, I sat behind the HR team. And I was so drawn in by the marriage of the people aspect of working and also the employment law. So for me, it was just the perfect combination. So what I decided to do then was to apply for a part-time master's. So I studied in the evenings for 2.5 years, I think it was. So I have my HR master's now, and I moved across to the HR team. CBRE are very good at kind of moving you through the business depending on where your interests lie. So from then on, I moved my way up the HR team. I was on high potential programs and things that enabled me to gain broader experience. And then I was promoted to HR director. At that time, I had my first child. Gosh, I need to think way back when now. I've got 3 children now. Had my first son and returned to work in a job share with a great friend and colleague who actually used to be my boss. So we had a perfect working dynamic already. The job sharing aspect is something I'm hugely passionate about. It's probably my main driver when it comes to working and well-being and thinking about how we can enable women particularly to return to work post-maternity leave in a role that means they don't have to reduce their seniority in a role that they've worked really hard to develop by virtue of having had a baby and had a bit of time off. So then I had my second child, and at that time I was a complete, and still am, job share evangelist. And me and my job share partner had set up an Instagram account called the Job Share Pair to try and basically find ways of job sharing really effectively, and also to encourage others to look at job sharing as a practical way of working. And we were receiving lots of questions and comments and looking for advice. So at that time we both left CBRE and we set up a business called the Job Share Pair, where we offered coaching and consultancy advice to businesses and to individuals looking to job share. Then I'm sure lots of things and changes. Then Hannah, so we did that for a few years, and then Hannah, my job share partner, moved to Singapore, where she's been for a couple of years. And so we just found it too difficult to manage the business too remotely, and especially with time zones and things. So we've put that on ice, hopefully to come back to it at some point in the future, and have both gone back into HR work. So I then worked at Glencar Construction for a period of time, which is the fastest growing construction company as well. So that was a really exciting time, and then have moved since to Earl Kendrick in the building consultancy and property management
Mm.
space.
Oh, wonderful. And then so how did you find the shift with the sort of the construction and into the sort of the property side with Earl Kendrick? Did you find any challenges there in terms of not necessarily the people within HR, but were there any gaps in the HR policies that you had to fix or anything like that?
Having always worked in property and construction, bar the job share aspect, I've always worked in those kind of male dominated
Mm.
environments. So at CBRE, in particular, one of the roles, the senior roles that I had, I was the only woman in the room of men, really. And that was a big learning curve for me. Since moving to Earl Kendrick, it's very diverse, and
Mm.
the leadership team is made up of women as well. And clarify that point, CBRE is as well, but just in that capacity in that department I was in, it was less so. So Earl Kendrick and Glencar, actually, to a degree, have both grown enormously in a short space of time. So there's the excitement and challenge for me was always to come in and help to plug that gap, to kind
Mm.
of pedal back, get a bit of simplicity there, try and, yeah, plug those gaps with all the HR needs.
And
And,
bring that clarity, I think, because when you grow so fast, you kind of just feel like, well, we just need to get on with it. We just need to get on with it because we've got clients needing
yeah.
this and needing that, and you
Mm,
know, and sometimes as business leaders, and I try my very, very best with this, but sometimes there are times when you just think, I just don't have time
yeah.
to think about my sort of my next steps, and to have somebody like yourself to be like, okay, let's just pause a minute, let's take it back to
Mm,
basics, let me help you
mm,
to make it better. And that sounds amazing. So, and employee well-being obviously is a very big topic
mm.
across our industry. Are there any key things that property companies should be doing to support their staff?
So many things. I mean,
Mm,
for me, much like yourself, JD, the well-being at work is such a key integral part to getting healthy, engaged, motivated, happy people. We spend so much time at work, particularly in this kind of hybrid world where we need to be aware of enabling people to work in a way that works well for them, but also in a way that they still feel connected to the team. So
yeah.
since COVID, I have seen, just generally speaking, across all sectors and in different ways, and speaking to my peers and colleagues, that the way that we would have learned our craft is by osmosis, by sitting next to a manager or a peer or a mentor. And that's not so available now. And even
Mm,
in the property space where you're out on site a lot, I think shadowing and enabling people to feel really well supported is the way to ensure that people's well-being is at their highest. And checking in with people, so much of how we operate and how we are, we do show on our faces and in our
hmm
the way that we naturally, our body language, you can pick that up. If you're behind a screen all day and you're at home, you don't get that so much. So making sure that we're checking in on our teams, for me, management and strong management is the core of everything when it comes to well-being. There is that quote that goes around LinkedIn all the time, that your manager has a bigger influence on your well-being than your doctor will, because they have that level. There's a level of control, there's a level of support and interaction needed with a manager. And true management in an active management sense should, in a best practice world, take up probably a third of your week, just by virtue of having conversations, having check-ins, making sure that people are getting the support they need, the development they need, shadowing opportunities for those people who are outperforming their role. Are you then enabling them stretch opportunities,
Yeah.
acting up opportunities, so that if you're going on holiday, can they step in for you for the week to give them that light touch opportunity to build and to grow in a safe space? So again, initiatives are one thing, but they don't touch the sides really. When it comes to having a really active manager who supports you, enabling those opportunities to kind of move through a business is the best thing.
Something that I've spoken on recently is spotting signs of stress in employees and in your team in general. That because that could be upwards as well. That could be spotting the sign in your manager or
Yeah.
something like that. And and the signs of stress that are coming up are things like procrastination, missing deadlines, not responding to emails and that sort of thing. Have you seen a rise or had to deal with anything, obviously not naming names or anything like that, but had to deal with disciplinary action on that when actually, if you looked at it a little bit deeper, it could be that they're so stressed because they are working from home now because of COVID and that it just doesn't suit their need. If you've seen any of that and it's led down the wrong direction rather than helping somebody, it's caused like a disciplinary side.
I would say no, but that is because HR, I am a very kind of nurturing, supportive HR person.
Mm.
So if a manager came to me and said, using the example that you just have, this person is missing the deadlines, this isn't happening, this isn't working, then my first question is, what's going on for them? And we need to assess that first. A lot of the time, like you say, that will be a trigger for that something else is not quite right. So for me, as a responsible HR practitioner, that would be my first port of call. Ultimately, you can short circuit these issues into something that they aren't. So for me, a really great tool that I've used in the past and will continue to use is psychometric profiling. So what that will do is it will assess your preferred style of working, Jodie, and it will assess your behaviours under pressure. And if you share the outputs with your manager or your team, it's such an enabler, when it comes to any conflict, whether that's a workplace conflict, and that could be from an employee to a manager or in a grievance setting, or manager to employee when it comes to capability. So much of that can be managed through really strong, brilliant communication. It sounds so simple, but truly, if you're able to have a challenging but direct conversation with somebody that says, this is where your role is, and this is what we need from you, but this is how you're operating at the moment, and there's a gap in the middle. How can we support you to get there? Just an incredible springboard, really, for both sides. So using that example that you raised, often, let's say you're a very mild-mannered, meek, agreeable type of person, and I'm then noticing that you're coming into the office, you've got a really short fuse, things are getting to you in a way that they wouldn't normally. That's a huge signal for me.
Yeah.
So again, knowing our team members, looking out for them, noticing the signs, and yes, allowing people to have a bad day, but if that day turns into a bad week and a bad month, what's going on with you, Jodie? Can I help you? And you don't seem yourself. People are kind of afraid, even from an HR point of view. People will say to me, oh, I don't want to, I just feel I can't ask these questions. People are too afraid to be human.
And we have to get back to that. I mean, I've heard of so many examples, over the last few years, but probably maybe the last 5 years, I guess since COVID, that, people are being treated so poorly in their work environments. But actually, if you drill down, like you say, that what is going on with this person, there is a reason for everything. And I don't mean that all fluffy, like, oh, everything happens for a reason kind of thing. But there is a reason for everything. Everybody's reaction is a reason for something that's going on, and most of the time it has absolutely nothing to do with work.
We would be remiss to think that personal issues don't bleed into work. Of course they do. Yeah. And actually, if we enable people to have an environment where work is a safe space, where they can have a bad day, it doesn't mean that they're not going to be doing the work or that they're not as effective, or we just need to provide that level of support. I think that's really crucial. People remember that in their hardest times as well. If they've been they don't forget it.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And they remember, what's that saying? They don't remember what you say, it's how you made them feel. So yeah, absolutely. So it takes me on very nicely actually to, you're about to go freelance. What inspired the change? Is that something that you can share, or?
Yeah, I work 3 days a week at Earl Kendrick as it stands, and I'm going to have a continuing relationship with them, which is really exciting. I just want to be able to broaden my knowledge base, the same, but also different experiences with other businesses. I think for me, a huge driver for specializing in HR was that it's not sector specific. And I do
Yeah.
feel I've kind of fallen into that whole property construction area, which is no bad thing, but it would be great to have experience in other areas as well. I love coaching, I love mediation, I love lots of different aspects of HR, and it's so multifaceted because people are the center of every business. HR just formulates part of that whole cycle of being at work. And that really excites me. And it's something I just want to drill into a bit more with different businesses too.
HR in some ways, and this comes from a little bit of personal experience for me, because I started my career many years ago in HR. It didn't last very long. Because, and I'll be completely honest, so I went in very junior, obviously. I was only 19, I think, something like that. I was going through a business studies college, like 1 day a week, day release thingy. And the job that I had, it was for the Ministry of Defence. And it was basically you sit there and you tell people off all day.
Oh,
And
yeah.
you just go through the grievances and you go through disciplinaries, and it just wasn't what I thought HR was. So
Yes.
it's so refreshing actually to
Mm,
see what you can achieve for being a HR professional, because that's what I thought HR was. I thought it was helping people and being there for people and being compassionate and empathetic, which I am that person. And I left and ended up in, doing property and being a property manager, and trying to be nice to buildings instead of, instead
yeah.
of people. Well, I'm nice to people too. It's nice to see, and it's refreshing to see actually that, there are those HR professionals out there like yourself who want to make a change,
Absolutely.
and aren't just there for we need to change this policy and that policy, and obviously that comes into it, I'm sure, but but you're doing it with a view of, or you're coming from it from a place of compassion and a place of wanting to help. So yeah, it's
Definitely.
really nice to see.
Yeah, well, ultimately, I'm an employee at the end of the day. If somebody comes to me with an issue, I will always, first and foremost, put myself in their shoes first. And your experience, Jodie, will be the same as many people in HR, because depending on your own values, HR can be done so differently depending on your own values and the culture of the business. So you have
Mm.
to make sure, particularly in the HR space, that when you do move around, that there is an alignment of you and that business so that you can work together really well.
Yeah.
Which has been the case in all of my areas of business, actually. I'm lucky in that sense. But I've also been very selective about the places I've chosen to work, of course.
Yeah, I mean, I just thought it was, wow, a career with Ministry of Defence, that's a lifelong career, and I can grow and I can do this, ambitious me, got all
Yeah.
excited about it, but maybe I should have started a little bit smaller. Maybe I should have started with like a little team somewhere rather than, taking on the government. But
Yeah.
so tell me, what do you think makes a great leader? We touched on it earlier about, it's about your manager and how your manager treats you. And what do you think makes a great leader in the workplace today?
Well, given we just spoke about it briefly, I think a compassionate sense of the people you work with, taking on board their nature. Ultimately, I think if you can try and get the best out of every person, that is what makes a great leader. There's a brilliant book from Simon Sinek. Have you heard of him?
Oh, I love him. He's great.
Yeah, he's read a book called Leaders Eat Last. And ultimately,
Hmm.
it is that you are the spearhead and the direction, but you are an enabler for other people. My boss always said to me, and I think it's a pretty well known kind of way of operating, but that you should always hire people smarter than you and not be threatened by that. And I think that that's an amazing leadership quality as well. Ultimately, to lead a business well, you have to be able to delegate, offer freedom to those underneath you who end up being the subject matter experts in whatever you're not. And that's
Mm.
having that kind of team structure. We operate at Earl Kendrick with the EOS, an entrepreneurial operating system, which is all based on trust, communication, healthy conflict
Hmm.
in order to get to where you need to with regard to your vision and your structure and your direction. So,
Yeah.
really important things as a leader to bear in mind.
Definitely. And flipping that slightly, what can leaders do, or what are the common reasons people leave their jobs, do you think?
Mm-hmm.
And and therefore flipping that to what can leaders do to stop that from happening?
Yeah, people honestly 90% of the time leave their jobs because of management in terms of, again, that's not a fact based on anywhere I've worked. It's just one of those things that is known in business, that people don't leave somewhere where they feel supported
Mm.
and where they have an environment where they can grow and learn. So the flip side of that, which is a huge challenge, is to find or support managers to develop certain skills and enable them to have the time to dedicate to their team members.
Mm.
If you're in a very chaotic style business where everything is quite reactive, it's very difficult to be an active manager. So creating an environment where, if we look after our people first, my view is that looking after people first will enable them to be really effective, really efficient, and very profitable for you.
Yeah.
And in effect, stay longer in often tight labour markets. So always putting your team and team members first.
Yeah.
It is simple but very tricky to implement when you've got a busy job, and a lot of the time managers, as they move through their careers, they are managers because they are very effective and very technically gifted, and they have that expertise, but they're not natural managers.
Yeah.
So I see
Or,
my
or
role
natural people managers.
exactly.
Yeah.
I see my role as coaching, guiding, helping to develop those people to gain the confidence to be better people managers, because better people managers means you have less employee kind of change and churn.
Yeah. And do you think the way that people are hybrid working now retains talent, or do you think we need to do the, you know, 5 days back in the office, sit next to your manager, like you were saying earlier? I mean, I personally think that having the flexibility retains your staff,
Yeah,
and giving them autonomy over their time as well.
yeah,
If you need to pop out because you've got a doctor's appointment, that's fine.
yeah,
As long as the work gets done, doesn't matter.
yeah.
But what do you think about that?
So what I don't believe in terms of, again, let's go to the central point of how do we get the best out of people. I don't believe having a master servant relationship between employer and employee does that.
Hmm.
I think there is a really fine balance to strike of, yes, enabling contact time and collaboration time in the office or whatever that looks like for you. But my main driver, again, just given the stage of my life that I'm in, and that I see and speak to and work with incredible women who are locked out of the workforce because they can't or aren't prepared to work a 40-hour week from
Hmm.
an office. It means there are incredible women, frankly, who are just unable to work. So if
Yeah.
we don't have that hybrid policy and hybrid way of working, we will see women's employment plummet, and we will see diversity of thought, diverse skills, challenging decisions, because men and women are wired differently. And, in any sense, we're wired differently. We
Hmm.
need diversity in every sense around every decision making table,
Yeah.
whether that's a virtual table or a physical table.
Yeah.
So,
But we
um,
can have that virtual table now. We
yeah,
proved it in COVID that we
yes,
can we can do it if we want to.
exactly.
And there's no reason why we have to go back to you have to be in that board meeting
Mm-hmm.
and you have to be there physically. Why
Mm-hmm.
can't it be on Teams or Zoom and just do an in-person one once a month? Because
Exactly.
you do need that connection,
Mm.
don't you?
And also,
Um,
it depends on the type of person you are. So I love working from home and I work from home frequently. But if I don't go into the office once a week, I really notice it. I'm a people person. Yes,
mm,
I can engage with people through a screen, but I really love the face-to-face
yeah, me too.
people contact. So if we find that balance between businesses and individuals and make that work, then that's when you're on to a winner, really, in my view.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So talking back onto or speaking of your career again, and again, please don't name names, but
Mm.
is there something that you feel as part of your career that's been the most reward, as a bit of a rewarding moment that you can you can talk about, or
Mm,
something that really sticks with you to think, do you know what, this is why I do this job?
yeah, a couple of things really. So the job share work, I felt so inspired by because we got amazing feedback from people who didn't know how to job share and then felt that they could excel and continue to propel in their career by virtue of being able to job share and job share well. So that was massively rewarding. Again, the role of HR has evolved enormously over the past 30 or 40 years, moving from highly administrative, policy updates, all of that kind of compliance
Mm.
edge to strategic partners who help a business move forward in the right way with the right people. So other rewarding parts of my role have been going through very, very difficult processes with people, whether it is a redundancy exercise or a disciplinary exercise where people have thanked me afterwards for managing it and supporting it in a way where they felt seen and heard.
Hmm.
And that's, like you say, probably what HR is not top of the list for, but certainly in my practices and in the way that I see my peer group supporting HR, we have really moved and shifted to that. And not in the, yes, I am very nurturing and I will always put people first, but not at the cost of, the success of a business in
Of
terms,
course.
that is what we have to move forward with. I love the marriage of those two things and enabling businesses to really excel and succeed through supporting their people and having the right culture that enables that to happen.
And have you ever faced any significant challenges in your own career that you've either struggled to overcome, or you think, oh, I'm not going to get through this? I mean, I don't know how I'm going to do this. Again, don't be specific, but or just thinking, do you know what? I'm so proud of myself for overcoming that challenge. Is there anything
Mm.
that you can share?
Yeah, I mean, on a personal level, it's very much, my eldest son is now 7. So I have 3 children, 3 young children who all are very needy in their own little
Of
ways.
course.
Um, so I'm really proud of myself for seeing through the inevitable, enormous identity change that happens when you have your first child and every
Mm,
subsequent child, and enabling myself to be in a position whereby I can still work, I can still offer the same level of value. I'd be completely lying to you if I didn't say I've had enormous confidence knocks and bumps with every career change that I've had, since having my first son. I was promoted just before I went on maternity leave with him. And I went from being in the office, I was always an early bird, being in from 7:30 till I felt that, a good solid day of work was done. And I would often leave at 6:30 or 7. So I'd have a long enough day, but I'd leave feeling like I'd achieved.
mm,
Then going to a situation where I'd have to come in after the nursery drop and then run to the tube to get on and make sure that I got there in time before the nursery closed. And then I didn't have a fine to pay. And all of the stress that
mm,
that brings on you, and then feeling, oh, I've just not achieved anything today because I've not been able to have the time or space to think. So in terms of the challenges, yeah, the identity shift, which I really believe job sharing can help you work through because you're still doing a full-time job, but just across two people, and you have that kind of
mm.
cheerleading support with you. And also, yeah, finding a flow that really works for me and for my family. And ultimately, they will always come first. So that flexibility and the need for that is always going to be my key driver. So yeah, doing a lot of shape shifting in the past 7 years and learning and continuing to have a career trajectory still high on my plan for me,
Mm.
but also being there for my family. So yeah.
Yeah, I completely get. Thank you for sharing that to start with, but I do completely get the identity thing. You
Mm.
know, I've got a 5-year-old, so I don't have three children under, under
Mm.
7. I mean, fair play to you. But you know, I have a 5-year-old who, you know, what 5-year-olds are like. They are very needy, as you say.
Yeah.
And, you know, she's in school now, but you know, I remember you know, the getting the nursery run and then having to drive an hour to, because I live in Bristol, I worked in Cheltenham, so drop her off, get to Cheltenham, get to a meeting, I'm completely flustered. You know, I look a mess, I'm hanging because she hasn't slept through the night,
Mm.
all trying to, all at the same time as trying to be the face of the business and keep that going and, you know, all of that stuff. And actually thinking, do you know what? I'm actually really crap at all of this.
Yes.
I can't run a
Very
business.
hard.
I'm a rubbish mother. I'm a
Hmm.
terrible wife. I'm this, I'm this, I'm this. And I would beat myself up daily. And
Mm.
actually, she's 5.5 now, and it's only now, I think, and I'm gonna try not to get emotional, that I feel like
Mm.
I'm coming out of that a bit. And I think, do you know what? You've achieved some amazing things in spite of all of the things that you think have been bad. And, you know, I got sick a few years ago and that
Mm.
sort of thing. You know, I nearly died from sepsis, and you
Gosh.
know, it's just. But yeah, I complete that identity thing. I think you've touched a nerve a bit with me there, because it's definitely something that I've struggled with,
Mm.
definitely.
One child or 5 children or 10 children, that doesn't matter. You still have changed.
Yeah,
And we'll never revert back to how things were before. There is just,
no,
and I think that our generation, are much better at leaning into speaking about that. Thank goodness.
mm,
Um, the reason that we have connected on that level is because this happens to everybody.
yeah,
And it's just a really, really difficult time that, frankly, it's difficult to get back into work. And when I was
mm,
getting back into work and trying to find something flexible, despite, having always excelled in my career, I found it really, really hard to do. And that's wrong. We
yeah,
should be providing opportunities for women and not kind of knocking them down when they're already feeling down from
mm,
this thing that's happened to them. Their life is turned upside down. And, we're still massively capable, strong, very able women who have so much to offer.
yeah, absolutely. And I think I was very much trying to hold on to that identity that I had of, you
Mm.
know, having all of my ducks in a row, and then it got to a point where I don't even know where my ducks were. You know, it was just, you know,
Yeah.
it was just mental. And it's not even how you look at that point, because obviously you look different after you've
Mm.
had a child, and it takes time for you to lose the baby weight. And you
Mm.
know, I think I fluctuated up and down for, you know, pretty much the 5 years since I've had her.
Yes, don't we
Um,
all?
yeah, but you know, and it's trying to keep that persona
Mhm.
of having everything together when actually I felt in times like my life was completely falling apart. I mean, obviously I was the business owner, so it
Mm.
wasn't even a case of being in a toxic work environment. I was making it toxic because
Mm.
that was just how I felt, and I didn't have anybody else to talk to. But to have you in a place like Earl Kendrick, where you can provide that support and you can provide people, women in particular, who are coming back into the industry,
Mhm.
or coming back into work in any industry, you know, going on to your freelance stuff, you know, it's you're gonna, you know, you're gonna make it a lot easier for people. And you know, the world needs people like you, Rachel. So
Oh, that's so lovely.
thank you for doing what you do. Speaking of which, how can
Mhm.
people find you when obviously with your freelance? What's the job role? What's the company name? All of that kind of stuff. Tell
Good
me.
question. I can't reveal yet because
Oh,
I've
okay.
just got too many. I've shortlisted it to 3, and
Okay.
I've gone out to my network to ask what their favorite is so that I get the right one. So the easiest way to find me is on LinkedIn, Rachel
Okay.
Maguire, Maguire.
Okay. Perfect. Well, I'll tag that into the show notes anyway. And is there anything you'd like to add before we finish off?
I've really enjoyed the opportunity to speak to you, Jodie. And
Of
yeah, I
course.
just hope that what we've spoken about does resonate with some people who might be feeling a bit wobbly about returning.
Yeah.
Please don't. We're all in it together for sure. And there's so much support out there for you. And you just need to find your person at work to help see it through for you as well.
And it doesn't have to be in your workplace. You know, I've got some really close industry colleagues who I consider some of my best friends now, who have helped me through difficult times. So yeah, thank you, Rachel. I really appreciate your time.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to my latest podcast. You can find me on LinkedIn and Instagram. The links are in the show notes. Or you can contact me on jodie@jodiefraser.com. For more content and updates, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on your favourite platforms. Thank you once again for listening. Until next time, take care.